Hey, folks. As you know, the Trump administration has abruptly stopped all refugees from entering the U.S. and suspended the U.S. resettlement program. Well, Beautiful Day Granola is preparing for significant changes to the national and local resettlement systems. Programs that have already been completed or ongoing have not been reimbursed, resulting in layoffs and program closure. This is why Beautiful Day does such important work. Beautiful Day shines as a Providence-based social enterprise with a unique mission to provide comprehensive paid job training to refugees who are involved in every step of making their award-winning gourmet granola. They run 4 job training and paid training programs. Job training for adults, internship programs for youths ages 15 to 18 with community partners, entrepreneurship training for Afghan women who are interested in starting food businesses, and management training for refugees interested in learning customer service and sales skills by managing one of their farmers markets. Job training programs further their mission of connecting refugees to their communities throughout business, job training, and education. And refugees come from all around the world: Syria, Ukraine, Afghanistan, Democratic Republic of Congo, Myanmar, Burundi, Somalia, Eritrea, and Iraq. And despite the fact they speak different languages, their granola chef, who is originally from Iraq, helps their refugees go beyond language barriers by fostering teamwork, building confidence, while making delicious granola and learning English. Their program is about 3.5 months. They also help these folks pursue an education, get job placement, or start their own businesses. And their delicious handmade granola is made with premium organic grains, seeds, nuts, dried fruit, and spices, no preservatives, binding all this goodness together, local honey, and the pride and spirit of newcomers rebuilding their lives. And what sets this granola apart is it's designed for snacking. Can't really tell in the bag, but it's Matt's laughing because I can't even keep. If I kept this bag open, it would be a problem. I would eat it and immediately. They get sizable chunks. They're flavorful, and you can enjoy it with milk like regular granola. There are 4 standard flavors: Keith's Original, Pistachio, Cardamom, Mochaccino, Hazelnut, and Ginger Zinger. And they also have like a specialty granola of the month. This month, I think, is like cherry chocolate. They got 3 muesli flavors available: breakfast ginger zinger and the vegan super original. You have this with yogurt. Any way that you have muesli. Oh, I can feel it. I can feel it. It's calling to me. High protein. They got high protein fiber bars, 6 flavors: banana foster, mochaccino hazelnut, pistachio cardamom, salted mango, bourbon pecan. Check it out. BeautifulDayRI.org. And you can see the packaging has their mission right on top here. Proudly made for you by refugees. Beautiful Day is offering free shipping for all Majority Report listeners when you go to BeautifulDayRI.org. Use the code MAJORITY, all caps, at checkout until March 7th. Check it out. We'll put a link in the podcast and YouTube description. Honestly, it's the best tasting granola I've ever had. And I've had like 4 bags of this already, and I'm begging everybody to take it out of the office. Can't stop. All right, now time for the show.
The Majority Report with Sam Seder.
The destiny of America is always safer in the hands of the people than in the conference rooms of any elite.
Sam Seder.
They are unanimous in their hate for me, and I welcome their hatred.
We must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex.
The Majority Report with Sam Seder.
Ever get the feeling you've been cheated?
It is Monday, March 3rd, 2025. My name is Sam Seder. This is the 5-time award-winning Majority Report. We are broadcasting live steps from the industrially ravaged Gowanus Canal in the heartland of America, downtown Brooklyn, USA. On the program today, Van Jackson, senior lecturer in international relations at Victoria University of Wellington in New Zealand, writer of the undiplomatic newsletter on Substack, author of the Rivalry Peril, How Great Competition Threatens Peace and Weakens Democracy, co-authored with Michael Brenes. Also on the program today, tariffs on Canada and Mexico to start tomorrow, supposedly. Meanwhile, fallout continues following the White House staged attack on Zelensky as Pete Hegseth ceases all cyber operations against Russia. Meanwhile, Trump's government is looking to cook the books on the GDP by excluding government spending. Because, government doesn't create jobs except for they only get rid of jobs, except for we're not going to even count that in the GDP. So everything's going great. Scam presidency continues. Trump hypes his buddy David Sachs's crypto ETF as a strategic reserve for the U.S. government. Meanwhile, the Treasury Department abandons Corporate Transparency Act measures, and money launderers all across the globe celebrate. RFK Jr. does pirouettes as HHS tries to deal/not deal with the measles emergency/not emergency. Israel provides more evidence for its genocide, or I should say the case for genocide against it, as it halts all aid to Gaza.
They can do that? I was told only Hamas could do that.
Well, the good news for Israel is that they'll have more for their defense fund. Rubio sidesteps Congress to send another $4 billion in military aid to Israel. And Trump's assault on Social Security and Doge's and Musk's, even though he doesn't work there, even though he does work there. His assault on Social Security, according to Martin O'Malley, former administrator of the Social Security Administration, the system, he believes, may collapse within 90 days. DHS is attempting to use IRS data to build an immigrant registry on the path to mass arrests. Speaking of mass arrests, Andrew Cuomo enters the New York City mayoral race. All this and more on today's Majority Report. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks so much for joining us at the beginning of another week that already feels like we've already had a week's worth of news today.
It's extremely overwhelming.
Says Emma Vigeland
Hello.
Of the Majority Report.
The Andrew Cuomo thing is just incredible to me. I mean, we're in a Me Too backlash era, really, with this, I think, Trump administration and the open endorsing of just rampant misogyny and R-word culture. But now with Andrew Cuomo, if he's able to ride this back in, I mean, he had dozens of accusers. He was probed by the DOJ.
I have to say, I never pursued those cases as much because he resigned before they came to fruition. But I will tell you, the number of things about Andrew Cuomo that I absolutely despise. I don't know if there's a single Democratic politician I have had more problems with than Andrew Cuomo over the years. You go back to the IDC, which was Andrew Cuomo's way of essentially empowering Republicans and preventing any progressive legislation from passing in this state.
The thing we all suspect Democrats doing sort of in secret, he made official and formal.
Oh, no, yeah. It was all out in the open. The only thing is that his role in midwifing the thing wasn't clear until much later. He also essentially destroyed the public hospital system in this state, which, of course, led to a lot of problems, a lot more deaths during COVID than there should have been. And of course, concentrated in amongst low income and people of color in this state. He also took gobs and gobs of money from Ken Langone to promote charter schools in this state. And he also did everything in his power to make it virtually impossible to institute universal pre-K.
Right. And
good on de Blasio. He never did a very good job of promoting himself for it. But the idea that people living in New York City who have had children or plan on having children could ever want to vote for Andrew Cuomo, who was so against universal child pre-K, it is just astonishing to me. And honestly, like if the media does its job, which I don't believe that they will in this city, Andrew Cuomo won't get more than 10 votes, but we'll see.
We will see.
Meanwhile,
Zoran. That's all I have to say about that.
yes,
I saw some hats out. People canvassing in Brooklyn. Love to see it.
folks need to really spread the word to New Yorkers about just how bad Andrew Cuomo is. He just is. If you didn't like Eric Adams,
That's what Zoran said. Is he's running for Adams' second term?
Oh, that's good.
Cuomo is without a doubt. In some ways, though, just like has to be fair to Adams, Cuomo has a lot more of like undermining of what Democrats and what just people want than Eric Adams did. Eric Adams is just corrupt. Cuomo was corrupt, but also more ambitious than just making himself wealthy. You know, Eric Adams was going to, after his mayoralty, he was just going to go off into the private sector. But what Cuomo wants to do is be corrupt and then also be president.
Exactly.
Where are we? Okay, here we are. So as you know, the hits keep coming from Musk and Doge, and now they're starting to take out a lot of like Social Security offices. And understand, I want you to think about who goes in to get Social Security. It is widowers, it is orphans, and it is people who are in their 60s who are retiring. And a lot of this stuff, they're not necessarily adept at doing stuff online. If you're in your 60s, I can tell you right now, I am not in my 60s. I'm getting there. But I did not have a computer. Nobody I knew had a computer as a freshman in college. Certainly no one had one in high school. We are not computer natives like people are today. And so people who are 5, 10 years older than me, the idea that they may need to go in and do this paperwork in person or to show documents, to prove documents. I was married to this person. They passed away, whatever it is. That includes people who may be in their 70s even, right? I mean, somebody passes away. So when you start to shut down those offices, you're preventing people from getting their benefits. You're preventing, potentially existing recipients of Social Security and others. And so all of this, like, people are starting to realize what's being cut here, and also that it's illegal. And we're going to find that out during the continuing resolution of the budget, because if it was legal, then you wouldn't be able to pass a continuing resolution because the budget's already been changed unilaterally by the president. So the Republicans had said, we're not going to do any more town halls because George Soros was personally paying people to show up at the town halls and selling tickets.
That guy. I mean, wow, they really just don't want to hear the free speech of their constituents.
They just hate the idea of a billionaire coming in and influencing our politics.
Right.
And so they had canceled, apparently, or said they were going to cancel their town hall meetings. Well, a couple of Republicans did not get the memo that they were supposed to cancel their town hall meetings. And maybe a couple of them were like, oh, man, I don't have to worry about this. I'm in blood red Texas. I don't have to worry about my constituents. They're all dupes. Well, it seems that Representative Keith Self found out in Texas's 3rd that's not the case. He had a town hall on Saturday.
The other one is the Doge program. closely akin to this is very closely akin to what Bill Clinton did between 93. Bill Clinton only plans to cut 400,000 jobs.
Wow.
Now, the Republicans want you to believe that this has all been coordinated and that these are really organizers. I mean, the bottom line is, yeah, of course. The reason why people show up at meetings, people get organized to show up at meetings all the time. The idea that well, but these are local groups that are, right. Who cares?
Well, why are they turning out now? Because activists try to get people to show up to this stuff all the time. It's only 100%. Now that they're showing up.
Of course. There's no meetings you go to where it's just random, I had no idea this meeting was going on. I just finally, just out of the blue, tuned in to what was happening at the local. No.
The algorithm hypnotized me here.
But
exactly.
In Texas, it's almost 130,000 federal workers in the state. So, the idea that this is entirely astroturfed is ridiculous on its face.
Of course it's not. I mean, the idea that it's organized makes total sense. Of course it's organized. But by local groups that don't get any funding. These are all just volunteers who are going out and doing this. And it's indicative of the Republicans having a problem. Now, they want to put their head in the sand, but it's not working. Here is Roger Marshall from Kansas.
Senator.
A senator, I should say, in Oakley, Kansas. Didn't go so well. Remember,
Soros has a lot of sway in Oakley.
30% of federal workers are veterans. Plus, they're slashing VA services.
Yeah. And in Kansas City in particular, in the metro area, we said this last time we covered a town hall from there. It's 30,000 federal workers. I think it's the largest employer in the metro area.
Now look at this guy getting up here, clearly one of these radical. He was out there.
SJWs.
Yeah, exactly.
Right now, as far as cutting out those jobs, a huge percentage of those people, and I know you care about the veterans, are veterans.
Yes.
And that is a damn shame.
Yes. Yeah.
That is a damn shame.
I'm not a Democrat, but I'm worried about the veterans, man.
Well, I yielded to one of my elders, and I appreciate his comments. I think it's a great. I'm not gonna. We don't have time for everyone to stand up. I do got 2 more commitments today. Appreciate everybody making the drive out, and God bless America. Thank you.
Wait, what?
In an hour. We're gonna take pictures with you, buddy.
Right now, as far
So he just walked out.
That's nuts. I hadn't seen that clip, and I thought he said, listen, I know you're, I thought he that guy just literally pretended like he did not hear that. I don't know if that guy who was standing up was a vet talking about other vets. And then the guy camera pans over I'm not a Democrat, but I do care about the vets. And
Hey,
Look at the
peace.
time.
this senator goes, thanks for asking the question. Bye.
I have 2 more commitments.
I gotta go to the bathroom. Don't, if I'm running out the back door, just don't worry about it. I'll be back any second.
This is a guy who's looking at the audience going okay, I can outrun just about 95% of these people. Bye.
This is the bind that Musk is putting these Republicans in, and Trump, which is that they basically have to answer to their constituents about this But the number one person that they have to answer to before they answer to the people they're supposed to be representing is the guy that's the richest person on the planet who's going to fund a primary challenge against them if they don't do his bidding.
Exactly.
What we are at a level in the post-Citizens United world where it's just completely out in the open, whether it's the crypto scams and the pump and dumps that Trump is engaging in openly using the federal government to enrich himself and the power of the presidency, or if it's like this, which is just exactly the problem with equating money as to speech and unleashing it in our politics, which means that if you have more money, you have more speech. And one guy has the most money on the planet, so he has the most speech, and it can drown out all those voices. It's up to the constituents to punish them in 2026, though.
Yeah, 2026 is going to be increasingly important to just get us back to somewhere that is even a relative baseline. There's nothing outside of these court cases. There's not much structurally the Democrats can do right now except essentially communicate to the American population that things are messed up and here's how they're messed up. And what is happening to you now, whether it's a loss of Social Security checks, whether it's loss of services from the VA, whether it's your kid is in danger because they can't get a measles vaccination because maybe they're immunocompromised and they're living in an area now which is like there's a measles outbreak, or the price of your car has gone up by $10,000 because Donald Trump has decided to wage a completely irrational, non-cohesive tariff war on two countries to justify essentially making America whiter, right? Like he has to do Mexico and Canada to sort of justify it. Like it's not just about the brown people. There's a lot of fentanyl coming in through Canada. Of course there's not. And so, I mean, on and on and on like this. But the Democrats have to get out there and explain to people why this is happening. What the relationship between government and the immiseration that they're going through is. And I don't know if they're going to do it. We'll see. But we'll see.
See Bernie if you can.
Exactly. Hopefully there'll be more popping up. We got a lot more to talk about. And in a moment, we're going to be talking to Van Jackson, senior lecturer in international relations at Victoria University in Wellington. That's in New Zealand, ladies and gentlemen. He's a writer of Undiplomatic Newsletter on Substack, author of The Rivalry Peril, How Great Power Competition Threatens Peace and Weakens Democracy. Co-authored that with Michael Brenes. We're going to be talking about this sort of like attempts to generate a new Cold War with China, the costs of the old Cold War, and what's going on with Ukraine. But first, a couple of words from our sponsors. Sleep is huge for me. And when I'm not getting woken up by my son or the new cat, because I'm trying to keep the cat from waking up my son, the biggest problem I have with sleep is falling asleep and then like staying asleep. So I guess it's all the problems with sleep. I sleep hot on top of like also worrying about everything else that's going in the world. And Cozy Earth can't help me when it comes to worrying about everything else in the world, but it can help me from sleeping too hot. Cozy Earth products are designed to transform your 5 to 9. That's the time when, you're asleep and maybe you're at home, into your coziest sanctuary. You can unlock an exclusive discount of up to 40% using the code Majority Report at CozyEarth.com/Majority Report. And I want to thank Cozy Earth for sponsoring this episode. Cozy Earth has basically redone my entire whole like bath and bedroom experience. I got Cozy Earth sheets. You know what? I also just recently found out duvet. You've been saying you have a duvet from Cozy Earth, and I thought it was just the cover. But the duvet includes like the sort of the comforter and the cover.
Yes.
I apologize.
No, I mean, not accepted.
I don't know why you couldn't have challenged me on that beforehand. Anyways, that's not the point. Emma has a cozy
Somehow
earth.
it's my fault again.
Cozy earth.
Pushback.
There's no pushback. Emma has a cozy earth, apparently duvet and duvet cover.
Yes.
I got the bath towels. They're super. They call them bath sheets. They're supersized or oversized, I guess. They're huge. They're ultra absorbent. They are super soft. I've also got Cozy Earth bath mats. Their sheets have a 100-night sleep trial, a 10-year warranty on all their bedding and bath products. Plus, I got joggers and my favorite sweatshirt, hoodie, is a Cozy Earth hoodie. The hoodie is just, it just blows me away. I wear it now constantly. I wear it to work every day too now. It's all made out of viscose, which is essentially bamboo.
Right.
In tiny, tiny strands. And so it's incredibly durable, but it ends up being incredibly soft, and it's also sustainable. Plus, the sheets have you sleeping several degrees cooler. Cozy Earth prides itself on the responsible production of its products. Cozy Earth bedding products have a 10-year warranty. That's how much Cozy Earth believes in them. Luxury shouldn't be out of reach. Visit CozyEarth.com/Majority Report. Use my exclusive code Majority Report for up to 40% off Cozy Earth best-selling sheets, towels, pajamas, and more. They have great pajamas. They make a great present, incidentally. That's CozyEarth.com/Majority Report. And if you get a post-purchase survey, tell them you heard about Cozy Earth right here. Sanctuary awaits at Cozy Earth. We'll put the link in the podcast and YouTube description. Also, like I say, talking about sleep, how do I get to bed virtually every night? Particularly now I'm worrying about daylight savings coming up. You lose an hour.
Oh, gosh, that's this upcoming
Yes,
weekend.
is it this coming weekend?
I think so, right?
Oh, no.
Daylight savings on Sunday?
Here's good news. Sunset Lake Sebede can help you get better sleep and wake up feeling refreshed. Right now, all of their Sebede sleep products are 35% off when you check out with coupon code DAYLIGHT35. Their sleep gummies are packed with Sebede and Sebe-N and a touch of melatonin to help you drift off naturally. Or if you're sensitive to melatonin, I tend to be a little sensitive to melatonin. So I've been using the Good Night oil. And I think they also have a Good Night gummy. I'm not 100% sure about that, but the Good Night oil is fantastic. This is it. It's the Sebede and the Sebe-N. This is my go-to. A lot of people like melatonin, so there's some of that as well. But this is incredibly helpful for sleep. And, you know, it doesn't have the same, you're not taking Ambien, which destroys your memory.
Oh, gosh.
And all sorts of other stuff like this. Plus, you know, the thing at Sunset Lake, all their products are third-party tested. You know exactly what's in there, all of the levels of the Sebe-N, the Sebede, and their farming practices, no pesticides. Just a great company. Don't let daylight savings time screw up your schedule. Head over to sunsetlakesebede.com. Use the coupon code DAYLIGHT35 to save 35% on all participating sleep products. But hurry, the sale ends March 9th. So you got a couple of days at midnight Eastern time, March 9th. See their site for additional terms and conditions, and we'll put the link in the podcast and YouTube description. Quick break. Be right back with Van Jackson. We are back. Sam Seder, Emma Vigeland on the Majority Report. It's a pleasure to welcome to the program Van Jackson. He is a senior lecturer at international relations at Victoria University of Wellington in New Zealand, writer of the undiplomatic newsletter on Substack, author of The Rivalry Peril, How Great Power Competition Threatens Peace and Weakens Democracy, co-authored with Michael Brenes. Welcome to the program, Van.
Thanks for having me. I first came to the show when I heard Janine Garofalo was on.
Oh,
and then it turns out she's not on anymore.
She's not on anymore. That was 20 years ago. Yeah.
But you guys are all right. Yeah.
You guys are
I stuck around for y'all.
Oh, I appreciate that. Yeah, that was 20. We just celebrated our 20th anniversary, actually. But that was
right.
That was back in the aughts. Well, all right. So let's start with the argument that that you all are making in the book is in many respects is this notion that somehow the Cold War with Russia was a benefit to the United States, to the world at large, and that somehow there are benefits to be gained with I guess, engaging in what is known as the great power competition or rivalry. There are actually people who sort of promote this as a way of, like, I guess, I don't know, maybe it's some like sort of extension of that libertarian ideology of like people functioning in their own best interests ends up somehow helping society. But tell us let's start with the myth of the Cold War being beneficial, broadly speaking.
Yeah, that's a good place to start. And my co-author and I, we sort of came to this project during the early Biden administration when like people that like I had been friends with in the sort of Democratic Party foreign policy milieu, you know, the sort of mandarins who ended up becoming Biden's staff, like Kurt Campbell, Jake Sullivan, and these guys. They basically built their whole orientation in foreign policy and their whole domestic economic project around confrontation with China, around reasserting American primacy in the way that we relate to the world. Sometimes we would just like code it gently as like American global leadership or something, but we're talking about like hegemony, domination of the world, you know? And we were using China as like the gateway to that. And one of the arguments that we kept seeing these guys, my one-time friends, making was like, you know, the Cold War is why we had civil rights. The Cold War was good for the labor movement. The Cold War can make us the best version of ourselves. And we were like, what the fuck are they talking about? Like the Cold War that I knew had 14 to 20 million people die. And we just don't keep it in our historical memory because there was brown and black bodies in the third world. You know, the Cold War that I knew was like 60 plus U.S. attempts at regime change, 40 something of which were on the side of autocracy in the Cold War. The Cold War risked global annihilation of us all multiple times. The Cold War sucked by like any clear-eyed, non-cherry-picked understanding of history, you know? And so we were like, these guys are using a bad, heroic, elite, kind of aristocratic understanding, like a great man of history understanding of the past to justify doing militarism right now. And and I think some of them had good intentions, but it was just a really bad reading of history. And we're like, this is a bad bet, dude. And we could see already by 2021, just the fact that like, Trump had been hyping up the China threat in his first term led to this huge spike in anti-Asian violence in the U.S., the surveillance and oppression and then the forcing to the flee of scientists who happen to be Asian or Chinese. You know, like we were seeing a kind of Red Scare happening amid so many other things that were happening. And we're like, this is just the tip of the iceberg. Like this entire project that we've got of America is going to go down if we end up trying to confront a big bad rather than deal with our problems, right? Rather than attend to social democracy at home, we're going to defer social democracy in the name of fighting a big bad. So our meta argument ended up being that like if we paid a little more attention to history from the perspective of its victims, we would see that geopolitical rivalry tends to be the enemy of all the things that we think are good, peace and democracy, not least.
All right. Well, let me start with the were those folks, was that a sort of like post hoc justification for for an agenda that sort of pre-existed in terms of like this conflict with China? Like nobody was saying that we should start, or were they trying to argue that we should start a Cold War with China because of all the benefits that we get from domestically? Like, I mean, I think it is the case that the competition that we felt with the Soviet Union probably did provide, I don't know if it was the definitive one, but some impetus for civil rights in this country because we were in some type of competition. I don't think it would have been enough to push it through. But were these guys, when they were talking about it with China, because this all started way before Biden, right? I mean, we saw the
started under Obama.
Obama, right? I mean, we saw and I would argue that it started in I think it started in 1993. I mean, I think I've told this story on the original Majority Report. In fact, we broke this story with Gary Hart. Janine and I interviewed Gary Hart, and he told us about he and I think it was Rudman had a 21st Century Threat Commission. They went around the table of 15 people they had invited. What's the number one threat? Everybody said non-state actors, terrorism. One person said China. Everybody sort of laughed at that person. They all went around the room again 4 months later. Same thing. After having thought about it, the same person said China. That person never showed up again. It was Cheney. It was either Liz or Lynn. I can never remember which one. But this is back in 2000, right? And so I'm quite convinced the whole Project for a New American Century and the Iraq War was very much about trying to contain China in some fashion. So this is pre-existing out there. These guys from the Biden administration weren't saying we should start this thing with China to help with domestic, or are they just saying we should exploit this thing with China to help domestic, or we should tamp down issues with a rivalry with China for these benefits?
So those are all great points. Like the Biden guys were kind of improvising foreign policy. Like it was an opportunistic thing. What is it in the political landscape of elites, not the masses, that can move things, especially on Capitol Hill? Well, it's the China boogeyman, right? And they were getting this, especially going back to the Gary Hart days, Democrats have always been defined by their right flank, and especially on foreign policy. All Republicans have to do is say a Democrat is weak on national security, and then the Democrats get all frothy about trying to out-hawk everybody. And so when Trump started calling Biden, in 2020, Beijing Biden and all this stuff, and he's weak on China, and that was the Republican messaging campaign basically for 2020 up and down the ticket, that created an incentive for the Democratic foreign policy people to try and out-hawk Trump. And so they ended up preserving and expanding all the blacklists of Chinese companies that Trump had started, all the tariffs that Trump had started, suspension of visas for Chinese students, the whole thing, the FBI, China Initiative program that they had, which was basically racist, that continued in all but name under Biden. And then the most important piece of all of this is the Pentagon, is defense spending. All of that hangs on the China threat. And the thing about Project for a New American Century and Liz Cheney and all that is really important in a larger sense, because the Democratic Party foreign policy, and you saw this under Biden, it's indistinguishable from the platform of Project for a New American Century. Missile defense, China rivalry, just the military spending, space weapons. It's all the stuff that they wanted, And so now the Democratic Party has basically become neocons on foreign policy. And the Republican Party, if you're going to be a neocon, you have to be a convert to MAGA, and sign on to this bizarro like imperialist stuff. Yeah, so like the China stuff has been in the background this whole time. The difference in the past 10, 12 years is that great power competition is a fancy way of talking about inter-imperial rivalry. Neoliberal globalization, it started paying like fewer and fewer dividends over time, right? With like in the wake of the global financial crisis and the Great Recession, globalization stopped paying off even for the haves. And so global growth stagnated. And when that started to happen, China and the US both turned to economic nationalism. And part of economic nationalism is necessarily like jingoism and, military one-upmanship and all that stuff. So both great powers are exploiting the advantages afforded by their powerful states, by their favorable positions in the world system, to claim a larger share of a shrinking economic pie, and that's the paradigm that we're in now. It's basically like state capitalism. Trump just does it in like a way that is like really focused on his corrupt oligarchic interests. But that was what we started doing under Biden too.
But I'm curious about your viewpoint then on Biden's foreign policy more broadly, right? Extending past obviously the more xenophobic things, but like Jake Sullivan was trying to sell something like called foreign policy for the middle class to the public. It seems like it's just what you're saying, where they're freelancing these NatSec ghouls that were really, honestly, it seems like running the show under Biden, who was very weakened at this point. And then, but in terms of if there's any ideological consistency, for me, it's like a time machine foreign policy. How can we go back to making sure that we reify NATO and make that incredibly central? AUKUS, the reopening of military bases, I think it was in the Philippines, right? This is all centered around, okay, how can we make ourself once again a global hegemon, and using kind of the framework of the post-World War II foreign policy to do that via Europe. But then when it comes to China, this is just like copy paste China for the Soviet Union, and now they're trying to create more of a military presence in Australia and in Southeast Asia as well. Like that for me is just okay, how can we turn the clock back? But I don't think they can turn the clock back.
Yeah, no, there's this, you're on it. You're totally on it. Like there was an intense nostalgia in Biden foreign policy, like this, it was like a rehash of the unipolar moment. So at the end of the Cold War, we declared primacy effectively as our grand strategy, which is a kind of structural domination of all comers. And that's an end and means of foreign policy. This was our orientation. We ended up calling it like liberal hegemony or an American-led order, or rules-based
Project
order.
New American Century's hyperpower.
Yes,
essentially.
yes. So these are all synonyms. You know what I mean? It's like nobody's confused. It's about American dominance. So in the argot of like international relations, we would call this primacy, right? But it's like a really predatory way of relating to the world, in fact, because it's like you are the top dog and you have to hoard power at the expense of others and then sell it back to them and say, actually, it's a global public good, our extreme power hoarding, right? That's primacy. That's in our strategy documents. This isn't like some conspiracy secret going back to the George H.W. Bush administration. So Soviet Union goes away and then we've got primacy. And in the unipolar moment, in the like fat, dumb, and happy Clinton years and the early W. Bush years, we could do primacy. We could do this extreme power hoarding shit. And it wasn't especially risky for us because we had a huge margin of power relative to everybody else. We could exercise bad judgment. We could do Iraq wars. And in the immediate sense, it was like, well, who eats it? Just some working class kids who had the mad fortune to enlist at that time or something. Like it was all paid on the credit card. Just debt financed our military. We don't pay for defense spending through taxation. It's through financing, right? So like It's all on the credit card. So like we were, go shopping, war on terror. So that's the world where we're still doing primacy. We still believe that our shit don't stink. And we're not necessarily paying a cost for it that we can see, but it's building. The right wing is getting perverted and distorted, and the Spencer Ackerman argument about the war on terror gave us Trump. Like that's happening. We're becoming numb to the violence that we perpetuate in the world, right? The apotheosis of which ends up being facilitating genocide in Gaza. Like it's all connected. But China figures into this because only China had a chance. Going back to the 90s, to your point, Sam, only China could stand in for the Soviet Union, and the American national security state was literally designed as of the 1947 National Security Act to deal with a giant, communist monolith or whatever. Like literally a great power, a single other great power is what all these agencies are set up to cope with. The war on terror actually sucked for the U.S. national security state. Like it was a hard thing to do, and it didn't do a good job. But like that's, and so everybody who was in the national security world in D.C. and the think tanks and shit, they wanted to pivot. Even like I served in the Obama administration. We wanted to move away from the war on terror as a paradigm, but we still believed in primacy. We still believed that that was the thing. What we didn't get was that the world was becoming more multipolar. Global power was diffusing, not concentrating. So we were literally going against a global trend in trying to seek primacy.
Was that because there was, I feel like at the beginning of the Obama administration, there was this understanding of like, particularly maybe, I don't know if their understanding of why it was happening was necessarily ultimately, in retrospect, the full story. But there was this sense that post-Iraq, we no longer had that margin of error anymore, and that things were just not heading in there, and that Obama was trying to do some type of like soft landing. Although I did become aware of the Asian pivot, but just coincidentally because I got held over in LA and went on some down in Long Beach, they had a carrier there where you could go doing a tour. And this guy is just like showing us a map. And he's like, and I was like, why are all our ships over there? And he goes, oh, that's part of the Asian pivot. And I was like, the what? That was it. It was the first time I ever heard it. Never heard about it. Nobody else was talking about it except for this dude and, giving a tour on a boat. And so was there not in the Obama administration sort of an awareness of like, okay, we're no longer the hyperpower. This notion of like Vox Americana is just not happening. The whole strategy to have a series of low-level conflicts around the world and let that just keep everybody busy was not gonna do it. I mean, surely they must have known or known that wasn't the case. But I guess the TPP by the end of the Obama administration was that a concern about the rise of China and an attempt to sort of like keep it down, or was it like aspirational, like this is going to set it up so that we do have a bipolar world?
Yeah, the Trans-Pacific Partnership was, and the Asian pivot, which in Washington they call like rebalance to Asia. That like those things were expressions during the Obama years of doing primacy in an updated historical context. So what ends up happening is like, as the world, China is building up its military. It's not like surging military spending. It's indexed to its growth rate. So it's just like keeping up at a steady pace, but it's growing. So its military spending is also growing, right? Also ours was. But so in the capabilities that China was amassing, effectively missiles, that could attack like aircraft carriers and stuff. The technology itself is making it harder and harder for the Pentagon to imagine winning a war in Taiwan, because Taiwan is literally right off the coast of mainland China, and it's thousands and thousands of miles away from us. So the balance of the geography makes it almost impossible for us. So as soon as China has any kind of real capabilities the game is kind of over for us. And when we recognize that the game is over for us and our cold warriors start to see that, they don't think, well, let's time it to pack it in. They think, well, our strategy is primacy. We better catch up. We better keep ahead of them at all costs. And it's not that China has like a bigger, badder military than us. It's that the only place we dominate the world militarily, but there's this one spot on the map that happens to just be a really hard challenge for us. And instead of being like, maybe we should figure out how to avoid a war in that spot called Taiwan, we actually ought to arms race and make sure that we can dominate the Chinese military in Beijing or some shit. And so it's like we've set an impossible standard for us in the name of primacy. And as the circumstances in reality became more and more unfavorable, we had to start running harder and faster and being meaner and more predatory. And that culminated in Trump and then Biden, which was Trump plus when it came to China. Like Biden was even more aggressive than Trump on China, and then now Trump has inherited all of that. And it's people like Marco Rubio running the show and Pete Hegseth. So I'm sure things will be fine.
So where does that leave us now? I mean, and let's tie in like the, what we saw. I don't know. How would you characterize what we saw on Friday? That looked like literally like it was a play. Like I feel like one of those things where you can call up somebody to go prank your boss. Like
right.
it had that kind of sort of feel. I mean, it was definitely a show for the rest of us, but what is Trump trying to do? Like there's some people are saying like, he is trying to, I don't know. I don't want to give him too much credit for having a cohesive ideology here.
Yeah.
Because I think like, two things can be true at the same time. He is positioning us in such a way that just happens to be lucrative for him and for frankly, Musk for that matter. And it, and he may have but essentially accepting a bipolar or a tripolar or a quadpolar, sort of like world where, it's founded on just sort of, we're just going to do business. Like instead of having a mob war, we're just going to carve up the city and we're each going to get 1/4. And as long as we all stay in our turf, we get to do this stuff. I mean, give me your sense of what's happening with that.
I mean, that's what's happening, but that's in another era, we would have just called that imperialism.
Right.
Straight up. And so like Trump is, and again, all of this is like, you don't want to make him seem more coherent than he is, but you also do want to draw attention to the outlines of kind of what's happening, like structurally. So like Trump is still doing China rivalry, but the great power competition, it's not like a grand strategy though, like he's doing a lot of incoherent things. And so big picture, the shape of his foreign policy is totally imperialist and ethno-nationalist, which is to say a more predatory version of the kind of domination that even Biden pursued. And so you look at where is Trump doing the imperialisms? It's Greenland, it's Panama Canal, it's the fentanyl wars with Mexico. All of that is justified on the basis of confrontation with China. The land grabs, the need to secure critical minerals, it's all China. Even the Ukraine minerals deal that fell apart last week in that just agonizing embarrassment in the White House, that could not be further away from China, really. But the reason why the critical minerals, which is why Zelensky got invited there, was a priority in the first place for foreign policy is because this belief that critical minerals is the hotness that you got to secure in the case of war with China. And then Pete Hegseth's war on DEI at the Pentagon, why does that matter to them? Because they say DEI is messing up their lethality. Well, lethality for whom? For a war against China, the $900 billion military budget plus the $1.7 trillion in nuclear modernization over the next 25 years. None of that has any justification except for war with China. Like cartel wars with Mexico don't require stealthy F-22s. They don't require nuclear submarines. That's stuff for China, you know? And then the thing that like people are really missing, this is a big story, the Silicon Valley defense cartel, the Palantir, Anduril, SpaceX, OpenAI, these are like the biggest beneficiaries of the Trump presidency. They all have close ties to Elon Musk. And you look at their annual reports, you look at their quarterly conference calls, they are the hype men for World War III with China. They are selling the China threat to the public as their business model and then telling the US government, pay me because we're your answer to fighting China. So this whole thing is rigged. And this is why it's like Trump says lots of incoherent stuff, you know, like, I'm friends with Xi Jinping. I get along great with China and all this stuff. Love to see it. That's nice, good, peaceful rhetoric. But structurally, all of the material interests that are associated with his presidency, they don't make money except by ringing the China threat alarm. And
well,
so
with
the
AI,
Pentagon,
right?
Yeah.
I mean, they're going to incorporate that into their Pentagon spending, or at least that's going to be, I think, a part of the defense future, right? Is using American-based artificial intelligence. Like, I mean, we saw it in Gaza. Anthony Lowenstein wrote the book, The Palestine Laboratory, about how weapons are tested on the Palestinian people. I could totally see the AI, or like Elon's AI, being incorporated into weapons technology with his satellites and things like that.
That's the plan, man. Like, they're literally the VCs, the tech VCs. They've put $500 billion. There's no growth sectors in the global economy anymore. We're screwed, right? So they're looking for a unicorn. There isn't one. So what do? They put $500 billion into AI. Oops, AI is not profitable. And depending, like, and ChatGPT is like, you know, 6th grade copying my essay homework or whatever. Like, it's not great most of the time. But even if you think AI is whiz bang technology, they just can't figure out how to make it profitable. Certainly not $500 billion profitable. But do you know how you make profit in a low growth world? You sell to the national security state. You know, the Pentagon isn't going to check your homework about whether they're getting a good deal from their future of war. That's not falsifiable. You know, you say you stick some AI in the algorithm that you sell them and you do cost overruns on, and they'll pay for it and they'll package it and they'll be like, well, it's got AI, so it's super sexy. Plus Israel's using this to kill Palestinians. But it's like, you're really talking about just like automation at a certain point, you know? It's like, and it's like it's going to be profitable for the VCs only by way of selling it to the national security state, which means, again, you have to have like a big bad to hang all this on. And that's mostly China.
So, I mean, it sounds like if I was to make a difference between the Biden administration and the Trump administration, you know, sort of broadly speaking, they both want to villainize China. All the typical people are going to benefit from that. I mean, we have a $900 billion defense industry. I mean, at least, right? I mean, that's just what we advertise.
Yeah, there's some funny accounting there.
Yes, and but the some segment of the Biden, I guess, administration sold it as like, this is going to help with our manufacturing base, and this is going to help blue collar people, and it's all sorts of other benefits could come from it that we don't know. Maybe we'll get, you know, more civil rights for people, or I don't know what. And then, but the Trump people have the sort of the same dynamic, except for this is going to make all of our crypto buddies and tech bros really, really wealthy. So my sense is that Musk and some of these people don't have, I get the sense that Musk is going to sell to both sides. Like, this is sort of like, I get, you know, this is Musk's investment in China. Like, they don't want to destroy China. They just want it to exist as a threatening sort of like almost like catalyst to keep producing this national security need, right? So you have to sort of like, you have to calibrate this on some level. Like you wouldn't want to defeat them in any meaningful way because then all of a sudden, well, what are you left with? You'd have to like make Space Invaders on some level, right? Like, oh, this is the problem. This is why I've been saying we got to go to Mars to fight the people from Venus or whatever it is. Like, so this has to like be maintained as a Cold War rather than a hot war on some level.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head, man. That's the beauty of the Cold War to these guys. You get to have the perpetual crisis and the paranoia machine that diverts attention from the actual needs of society. You know, the excuse in real time, Republicans right now, amid the $1 trillion budget, $4.5 trillion of tax cuts, cutting SNAP benefits, cutting Medicaid, all of that going together. You know, like the boogeyman, the foreign policy boogeyman has always been part of that reactionary project. You know, like, and this is we have a whole chapter of this in the book. It's like geopolitical rivalry helps consolidate reactionary political projects at home and abroad.
I mean, this is always the case. I mean, and it's not just with America or with China. I mean, it helps with Iran to maintain their. I went down to Cuba and there's a statue 500 feet from the U.S. annex of Jose Marti, pointing, saying to America, stay away from our children. And he's holding Elian Gonzalez. These guys, incidentally, did not live at the same era. So the idea is that, this is the way that people foment. I mean, it's probably helping Zelensky to have gone and had this sort of like a problem with Trump. I mean, in terms of like domestically, I mean, this is the way what George Bush did in many respects too. So, all right. So is there, to the extent that is there a threat from China? I mean, I don't even know how to define what that would mean. Like I imagine a world where there is a threat from a foreign entity. It's hard to imagine one where it's not exaggerated, but what is there a threat? And then also just touch on what you think that dynamic is going on with Trump and Zelensky and Russia.
Yeah. So China is not a threat to U.S. existence unless we're going to fight a nuclear war with them. What they threaten is America's dominance. They threaten American primacy. Literally, China's rise comes at the expense of America's status as the dominant power. But
what does that mean to me? Yeah, okay, well, that was I was going to say. Okay, so I can't.
Normal people don't get anything from
I was going to say, we're not going to be able to go to I don't know, the Olympics hockey game and go, we're number one,
right?
Okay, or whatever it is. But outside of that, how would that impact us on a daily basis? Because it seems to me that if we maintain decent relationships with the world, there's no threat to the U.S. primacy of the dollar, let's say, because there's no reason to change it, right? The inertia in and of itself would just keep us. And I would imagine we would feel it if the U.S. dollar was not the sort of a primary currency in the world. That would impact us in many ways. If somehow we were not the biggest consumer of goods in the world, even if we were second biggest, I think we would still be okay.
Who cares where we fall on the list of things? What we care about is our lived conditions.
Right. No, I'm just trying to come up with a scenario where we would feel a broad-based change in our conditions. And it's really hard to imagine one outside of being radiated by a nuclear bomb.
That's right. But these guys who make the foreign policy, they're very animated by these old Munich appeasement analogies. And they're trying to play chess 3 moves ahead, where it's if in a hypothetical future, China consolidates control of Taiwan, then China will have a greater ability to conquer all of East Asia. And if China conquers all of East Asia, then China will have the ability to project power across the Pacific Ocean and attack California. And it's like, dude, like, what are you talking? That's total galaxy brain stuff, like that's not the real world at all. And you're going to risk World War III now in the real world to prevent that thing from happening. Also, pay attention to China. Why do you on what grounds China on its own terms? Why would they do that? Why would they want that or need that?
But is that really, do they really believe this stuff? Or is it more like, look, I'm best friends with, my father-in-law runs so-and-so corporation, and they're going to lose their market share if China, do they really believe? Because what they're talking about is the domino theory, right? I mean, it's just in a different name, and it sort of feels like that was disproved.
Yeah, it's not serious analytically, but and for normal people, I think. But there's a little bit of there's true believers. There's the big New Brzezinski guys. They think of the world as a chessboard, literally. Unfortunately, that's the lion's share of people who actually are foreign policy practitioners. And then there are some foreign policy practitioners who get paid from the defense industry or get paid from UAE and Qatar. Who get paid by American allies, and so there's a lot of corruption in the system, and you should totally follow the money with this stuff. And ultimately, all of this is happening. If we abandoned primacy, if we didn't relate to the world in a predatory way, we would be a lot better off. We wouldn't have these problems, and China wouldn't appear as nearly as threatening. The Zelensky stuff is pure. I mean, who knows why Trump is infatuated with Putin. I'm not going to psychoanalyze him, but that's what I see as total imperialism. So the template of great power competition is inter-imperial rivalry. Land grabs of choke points like the Panama Canal, resource extraction from Greenland, that's imperial foreign policy. As you take that template and apply it to Ukraine, you would predict that the U.S. doing an imperial foreign policy is going to seek maximum rent-seeking and resource extraction from Ukraine, screw them and their people. That's how it works, because it's big power, small power. And that's what the minerals deal was, minerals for military assistance, And so it's the drama of the blow-up. The one thing Trump said that was true in that room, as awful as it was, is he told Zelensky straight up, he's like, you don't have the cards, man. And that's true. He's losing. Russia can outfight him, last longer. Russia can out-escalate if needed, bigger, badder weapons. And the politics of this, everybody knows Trump is on Russia's side, which is why Ukraine doesn't have the cards, And so we're just seeing that version of imperialist foreign policy play out. The one thing I would note is that the national security bros that I from my old world that I kind of pay attention to still, they have two bumper stickers. They consider themselves never Trump type people for the most part. And yet they're totally willing to serve him and his agenda. And so I'm not going to psychoanalyze that, but the two bumper stickers of what they think they're trying to do within Trump world right now is minerals for military assistance, which is a paradigm that they basically support. And that's what's playing out in Ukraine, just in a vulgar way. And then the other one is Monroe Doctrine to the shores of China. Monroe Doctrine, of course, is an imperialist doctrine. It's an exclusionary doctrine of other great powers. If you remember Latin American history, under the Monroe Doctrine, we did dozens of wars, dozens of coups. You know what I mean? In the name of the Monroe Doctrine. If we extend that doctrine truly to the shores of China, it's World War III time. There's just no avoiding it. Those bumper stickers are horrific if true, because it's pure imperialism all the way down, all the way till World War III, baby. That's scary.
We should say also the stuff we did in Latin America, we now is driving essentially I mean, you could argue, put Trump in power, right? I mean, because the catalyst for this anti-immigrant sentiment is driven by what we did in destabilizing this hemisphere in many respects and making it impossible in many of these countries for civil society to grow and develop and stabilize and develop a mechanism in which to protect and benefit materially its own people. And so people are coming up here to look for work.
Right. And yeah, go ahead, Van.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, like, this is what puts us on the left. Analytically, we look at insecurity in the world and we attend to and we perceive the root causes, which are always social and political, even of military insecurity, and the right does not think that way. They ignore the social and political inequities that lead to the problems in the world, and they focus only on the proximate thing. Does the guy have a gun or not? Are they coming across the border or not? Not the why, not the layers that get us down to what caused this situation. That's what makes us the left, man.
But my question then, I guess, is like we focused a lot on our motivations in the West, and particularly the United States. What is China's vision here? Like, they obviously are trying to extend their soft power in a variety of different instances, whether it's like, building stuff in the continent of Africa, or it's getting involved in negotiations between Iran and Saudi Arabia over the starvation of the people of Yemen and that proxy war there, which they were kind of successful. And that the question is like, what do they see as their end goal here? I'm not naive enough to think that they're acting benevolently, but obviously I would say their strategy is more intelligent than ours.
Yeah, I mean, they want greater status. This is a great power thing. Big powers like more status. They're largely happy with the global order as it has existed, although we are actively deconstructing that. And that's a problem for us and them and everybody. But China is like, they have to basically push out a lot of surplus capital that has accumulated as a result of them being the world's factory. And they're the world's factory, because we wanted them to be. But, like we pushed shit over to them to make it and process finished goods and then ship it back to us. We asked them to do that. And so they did it and they benefited from it. Right. And if we didn't benefit from it, we wouldn't have asked them to do it. But anyway, the system on which they became the world's factory relied on basically extreme labor repression and environmental degradation, a lack of environmental regulations. This was basically how they became the sort of low-cost manufacturer, which is why we wanted to have them do manufacturing, right? That was their competitive advantage. So labor repression is built into the export-driven model of economic growth that they have. But because they do labor repression, Chinese workers are very insecure and they don't consume enough domestically. So all the profits that get hoarded by effectively oligarchs and state-run corporations, the profits that get captured from this system have to go somewhere. And so the most productive place to plow it is in investments abroad. And so this is how we get the slogans like Belt and Road Initiative and stuff like that, like they're trying to usefully use surplus capital generated by a system of labor repression that is directly embedded in our capitalist system, And
is there investment through, for what they call the Belt and Road Initiative, et cetera, but through in other means in Africa, are they doing that for, is it imperialism in the way that they're doing it, or just in terms of like it's just another mechanism in which to extract resources and I guess to accelerate their own accumulation of like of the wealthy elite from China are practicing imperialism, just a slightly different flavor of it.
Yeah, it's less severe. Imperialism, I think, would be an overstatement. What ends up happening, where anywhere where they put money, there's a bunch of studies on this, they adapt their investments to the local conditions. So if they're investing in a place that's a thriving democracy, they conform to local regulations, they play their part, they stay apolitical, et cetera, et cetera. But most of the world is not thriving democracies. So when they put money into a place that's impoverished or kleptocratic or corrupt, their investment tends to inflame those local conditions that are already bad, right? So all of these places, especially in the global south, they need foreign investment. They need it bad. And they would prefer China to the IMF because the IMF is still doing the structural adjustment evils even today in 2025. They're still doing that. And so it's really hard for global south countries to accept IMF loans. China doesn't put those kinds of conditionalities on their loans, but they do expect you to have a kind of comprehensive relationship with them, which means you're not going to be part of like American war plans if you're taking money from China. You're not going to be offering like access to the US Air Force to your bases or whatever if you're also having Chinese investment building those bases or building the cell phone towers that you need for your country. And so the developing world is in this trap where China is the lender of choice, and China itself needs to lend in order to sustain the system that it has as the world's factory where it's capturing surpluses, unless it invests in its own labor, which it hasn't really done, and we look at that and we find that threatening. And so we have been putting, in the name of like primacy and great power competition, we put a choice on countries like Fiji or whatever, countries in Pacific and Africa and East Asia. We say, look, don't let Huawei build your cell phone towers. Yes, they're super cheap. And yes, you need super cheap digital infrastructure, but and no, we're not offering an alternative, but don't take it, because if you do, then we're not going to give you USAID money or what, which now, of course, we're not going to do that either. But like, that's the kind of trap that the developing world is in with great power rivalry. It makes them have to choose between China as lender or America as the contingent provider of like assistance, and so governments are trapped in this choice, and it's a choice of our making in a way. And it's not to give China a pass on any of this stuff. Like the exploitation that sustains this system is bad. The solution is to put more money in the pockets of Chinese workers. The trouble and the reason why the CCP won't do that is because it's not clear that they would still be the world's factory if costs went up that much,
right.
If wages went up that much.
They have to suppress labor on some level to make it worthwhile for companies over here to send their factories to China and around the world. Nice world you got there. Really appreciate it, Van.
Thanks.
Van Jackson, the book is the Rivalry Peril, How Great Power Competition Threatens Peace and Weakens Democracy, co-authored with Michael Brenes. Thank you so much for your time today. Really appreciate it. And we will put a link to that book as well as the Undiplomatic newsletter that you put out on Substack.
All right. Love you guys. Keep doing it.
Thanks. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, man.
All right.
All right, folks. We got to head to the fun half. Yep. Well, I guess the somewhat good news of the day is that the rest of the world also effed up. Maybe not as bad as us at the moment, but these things ebb and flow.
Yeah. Yeah.
We will head into the fun half. We will take your phone calls at 646-257-3920. We will read your IMs. Just a reminder, it is your support that makes this show possible. You can help us in our endeavors here at the show by becoming a member at jointhemajorityreport.com. When you do, you get the free show free of commercials. You get the fun half. You can IM us, and you keep us independent. Somebody on the IM was saying that we had a bunch of DraftKings, is it? Ads on YouTube. We should tell you that we're not aware of what ads run on YouTube. And we don't, if we don't say we endorse this product, like when we read ads, it's because we use it. Like, here's my Liquid IV, and, I got my Cozy Earth sweatshirt over there, and
the granola's there, but don't
I've
think
eaten
about it.
65 bags of granola the past week. So, these gambling sites are a problem, with all due respect to them.
Yeah.
You can see the data now, what it's doing, particularly to young men. In terms of like their credit card bills and bankruptcies. And
I read a piece on Left Reckoning, our bump steer of the year was the liberalization of gambling laws. And there was a quote from one of the guys who's like, yeah, we used to get a bunch of like 45-year-olds and stuff, which obviously isn't great either. But they're saying because of the online stuff, you're seeing more and more like 20-year-olds needing gambling help. And it's just like, all these ad reads, they have like big long disclaimers at the end for like every different helpline in your state, and it's like that's clearly not enough. It's not enough.
It's caused me to change my mind really on the topic at all, or fully. And it's also, we are now at a record level of credit card debt in this country, and that's not in small part due to like both crypto and I think gambling, sports gambling, which makes it easier for people to like take wild swings to alleviate their financial precarity, which is just very, very dangerous. And at the Georgia Fed, or is it the Atlanta Fed? It just came out earlier today that they're forecasting like a massive economic contraction in the next few months. So we could be heading towards some real financial issues. But.
JD's Pants also say you always get ads from PragerU and What is a Woman and Ben Shapiro on YouTube. It's awful. Also, we don't endorse them.
Yeah.
I think that's
hopefully clear.
That's also clear. Just want to make sure that's clear. What we do endorse is you becoming a member and supporting the program. Join themajorityreport.com. Also, justcoffee.coop. I also endorse them personally. Not only do I drink their coffee, they even have a Majority Report blend, which you can show your friends. That's honestly the best gift you can give people, because then you're also like, what's this Majority Report? Wait, this is great coffee, but what's this Majority Report? Oh, it's this show you should listen to. Mom, dad, sister, brother, aunt, uncle, friend, frenemy. Bring it to your high school reunion. Justcoffee.coop, fair trade coffee, hot chocolate. Use the coupon code majority, get 10% off. ESVN on break.
Yes, Matt, Left Reckoning.
Yeah, Left Reckoning over the weekend. Griscom and I at patreon.com/Left Reckoning talked the Zelensky meeting, some of the supposed farce of transparency regarding the Epstein documents, and this weird pattern that America First people like Dan Bongino and I can't remember the other guy, but Kash Patel, they have about saying how much they love Israel. Like Dan Bongino was asked for something in a rapid fire question, like what is something that's near and dear to your heart? And he said, protecting Israel, which is just okay.
Same.
Patreon.com/Left Reckoning to get access to that. Oh, and I'm also posting more on Instagram. So I'm just MATTLECH on Instagram.
Oh, wow. What are you posting? Like
just
cat videos?
Thirst traps.
Check it out, folks. Fishnet Matt. Wearing those fishnet shirts.
Fishnet Matt.
I was like, is this something, was that like a website I didn't get?
That was back in the 90s. There were people wearing fishnet shirts.
Yeah.
All right, see you in the fun half.
3 months from now, 6 months from now, 9 months from now. And I don't think it's going to be the same as it looks like in 6 months from now. And I don't know if it's necessarily going to be better 6 months from now than it is 3 months from now. But I think around 18 months out, we're going to look back and go like, wow.
What? What is that going on? It's nuts. Wait a second. Hold on for a second.
The Majority Report.
Emma, welcome to the program.
Hey.
Matt.
What is up, everyone?
Nomi Key.
You did it. Let's go, Brandon.
Let's go, Brandon.
Bradley, you want to say hello?
Sorry to disappoint everyone. I'm just a random guy.
It's all the boys today.
Fundamentally false.
No, I'm sorry. Women's.
Stop talking for a second. Now let me finish.
Where is this coming from, dude?
But dude, you want to smoke this 7A?
Yes.
Hi, me? Is it?
Yes.
Is this me?
Is it me?
It is you.
Is this me? Hello? Is this me?
I think it is you. Who is you? No sound. Every single freaking day. What's on your mind?
Sports. We can discuss free markets and we can discuss capitalism.
I'm gonna go start watching.
Libertarians.
They're so stupid, though.
Common sense says, of course.
Gobbledygook.
We fucking nailed him.
So what's 79 plus 21?
Challenge Matt.
I'm positively quivering. I believe 96, I want to say.
857-210-35. 501. 1/2. 3/8.
9/11, for instance.
$3,400. $1,900.
5, 4, $3 trillion sold. It's a zero-sum game.
Actually, you're making me think less of it.
But let me say this. Poop.
You call it satire. Sam goes with satire.
On top of it all, my favorite part about you is just like every day, all day, like everything you do.
Without a doubt. Hey, buddy, we see you. All right, folks.
It's just the week being weeded out, obviously.
Yeah, sun's out, guns out. I don't know.
But you should know.
People just don't like to entertain ideas anymore.
I have a question. Who cares?
Our chat is enabled, folks.
I love it.
I do love that.
Look, gotta jump. Gotta be quick. I gotta jump.
I'm losing it, bro.
2 o'clock. We're already late, and the guy's being a dick. So screw him. Sent to a gulag?
Outrageous.
Like, what is wrong with you?
Love you, bye.
Love you. Bye-bye. We are back. Sam Seder, Emma Vigeland on the Majority Report. Folks, if you want to gift the show, you can go to fans.fm/majority/gift. We'll put it in the podcast and YouTube subscription. We really got to come up with a bit.ly for that or something. I thought I had a forward, like a majority